I have done all the major TV shows, Face the Nation, Hardball, Fox News Channel, CNN, but nothing, and I mean nothing, excited me more than appearing on your show, Steve Adubato, just last night. We say good afternoon to you, Steve.
Hey, Dominic, after that introduction, we lost touch for just a second, which is not a good sign for me.
Well, I'm glad that you are joining us this afternoon. And again, I wanted you on the program because in my 35-year career, there are certain people that stand out, and people that stand out for having the facts. Frankly, there's no other way to say this, that you know that they know what they're talking about. And when it comes to issues, when it relates to New Jersey and New York, you are the man, Steve Adubato. There's no other way to say it. So let's get right into the issues here. Cuomo.
Yeah, before you do that, Dominic, I need to say that easily could be said, and this is not simply the Mutual Admiration Society. The exact same thing could be said about you, which is why I was honored that you joined me on our public broadcasting show just a couple of weeks ago. But I just needed to get that out of the way.
Well,
Please ask away.
Thank you. Okay. So let's get to the situation. And by the way, when we're done with Steve Adubato, we'll be taking your telephone calls on this topic until the top of the hour at 1-800-848-WABC, the nursing home scandals as it relates to New York and New Jersey, 1-800-848-9222. But first, Steve Adubato. So the Cuomo and Murphy's leadership surrounding the nursing home controversy. Is it fair to say, Steve Adubato, that Murphy didn't do himself any favors by basically copying Cuomo on COVID policy?
Well, Dominic, I don't know who copied whom. And when I was writing my book, Lessons in Leadership, a few years ago, and I read Andrew Cuomo's book on leadership, the irony is not lost on me. I will say this. I don't know who copied whom, but I'll tell you what. It's the blind leading the blind, and not in a good way, because it was not only a terrible decision to send people back into nursing homes who had COVID, and then they weren't sure that they were separated. They weren't sure that the staff had the PPE. They weren't sure that people could be protected. Yes, they did not know then what they know now, but I don't know why they were copying each other, because when I interviewed Governor Murphy on this, he kept repeating that the nursing home said that they could handle this. My response is simply this: trust but verify. You needed to verify that they could have handled it. You needed to verify that they could protect people from getting sick and dying. What is way worse is what Governor Cuomo did. Because not only did he make that decision, and I'm not in that decision-making position, easy for me to say, but to undercount. They're not numbers. They're human beings, somebody's mother, father, sister, brother. The idea that they intentionally undercounted the number of people who died of COVID in nursing homes because they thought it would look bad, or that the Trump administration at the time would give him a hard time, or he wouldn't look like the leader he was purporting himself to be, is disgraceful on every level. It is a lack of leadership, and I cannot, Dominic, find any rationale for what he did other than to protect his image, which only made it worse.
Well said. I agree with everything, Steve Adubato, that you just said, television host. Why does it seem like, and I'm interested in your opinion here, why Cuomo is under so much more criticism, so much more fire than Murphy is?
It's a great question, and I'll tell you, my instincts tell me this. It's because Andrew Cuomo is more outspoken, is more dynamic, is more charismatic, was holding briefings that had great ratings, if you will, was the voice of reason at the time. And Murphy was doing his job day in and day out, making tough decisions, many of which are being questioned, particularly as it relates to business owners, gyms, restaurants, et cetera, schools, huge question marks. We have kids in the schools they're in our house right now, quote unquote, learning remotely, if you will. It's because Cuomo put himself out there as this great leader. He wrote the book on leadership, did not say a single word as I read the book about the nursing home debacle, never mentioned what he did in terms of the undercount. Long-winded way of saying he frankly was out there more and was more visible in a way that he was more of a target. And frankly, my view, a bit more arrogant about his weaknesses, refusing to admit his mistakes, and that makes it worse.
And so in the state of New Jersey, as it relates to COVID deaths, is the figure about 40% of the total number of COVID deaths are senior citizens that were in these facilities? Is that accurate?
So, Dominic, here's the challenge. If we are to trust, and I want to trust our government officials until I find out otherwise, the Department of Health in the state, the governor's office in New Jersey, is saying that is the number. Until I find out otherwise, with a legitimate source that I can trust, that's what I believe. I do not believe that Governor Murphy in any way tried to undercount the number of people who are older and who died in nursing homes. And that shouldn't even be to his credit, Dominic. That's just a fact. It just makes it worse what Cuomo did, but Murphy was at least smart enough or at least decent enough person to say, yes, this is a reality, 40% of this age and this number of people who are real people, as I said, in nursing homes who died. Any way you look at it, by the way, both governors should have verified and confirmed that those nursing homes were more than capable of handling those patients. They did not, and those families and those people paid a terrible price, the ultimate price.
Let me just put it this way. We are talking with Steve Adubato, the television host, the PBS television host. Steve, I know that you'll probably disagree with this, but it needs to be said, and it's the truth. In the state of New Jersey, you don't get elected governor unless they come through you and your television program. So I wanted to do this today to focus not just on New York, but the situation as it relates to New Jersey. So with Murphy and his team, the governor, was it just, I mean, granted, we were hit with the coronavirus. What do? It's a panic, a pandemic. You got to make a quick decision. But was it, in Murphy's case, simply, can we explain this away as a lack of preparation, or that they simply panicked? Or do you think it's something more devious at play here?
Dominic, are we talking specifically about the decision to send people back into nursing homes?
Yes.
And by the way, I want to also be clear, there's a problem in New Jersey, a real problem with veterans' homes. Okay? So you put the nursing home scandal, and I do call it scandal because I thought through that word, and the veteran home scandal with the number of people who died in veteran homes as well. Listen, they knew what they knew at the time. That's like Dr. Fauci originally saying, you don't have to, the mask is not that important, but then realizing later that, yes, he was saying that the first mask should go to people who are on the front lines in healthcare and medicine and hospitals, but then he retracted that as we learned more. Part of this, Dominic, is I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, Murphy and others in New Jersey, because they didn't know what we know now. However, what I don't accept is acknowledging or refusing to acknowledge that, yes, we made a mistake. Yes, it was a problem. Yes, we should have done things differently. That's what I have a problem with. And to date, and I've been looking forward to a follow-up interview with the governor. It's been about 6 or 7 months since I've interviewed him. I want to ask him directly, was this a mistake? If you could do it again, would you do it differently? What do you want to say to those families? Those are the questions. And I have to tell you, I respect that the governor goes on a lot of national programs, and he's very good in the media. But I'd like to sit across from him respectfully, directly, ask him, give him a chance, and then follow up, because I want to have a more genuine, honest conversation about this terrible situation that's affected so many families.
But Steve Adubato, television host, we both know the deal. We both know what time it is. These politicians, they go on the national programs as a way of avoiding the tough questions from local reporters that they know they're going to get. If they go on national television, the topic is just going to be dealt with on the surface and not particular details. So that's why Cuomo does it. That's why Murphy does it. But
that's right.
But why in the world? Because I'm really trying to understand this. And in a second, I got to take a break, but I want you to stay with me for a second because I want to get to some other topics. Why in the world would Murphy copy Cuomo's directives when it comes to the nursing home situation?
Dominic, I don't know. Dominic, I'm sorry for interrupting. I don't know who went first. I will say this. It's clearly it was coordinated, though. I believe it was coordinated. I believe, and that's not a bad thing. On some level, when the governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut were getting together and cooperating and coordinating early on so that there wasn't confusion between and among the three states. That's okay. But if you just if Murphy copied what Cuomo did or Cuomo copied what Murphy did without thinking through strategically, operationally, how are we going to ensure their health and safety coming back, then it's just copying. That's not leadership. That's covering your behind because you weren't the only one who was going to do it, that the other governor was going to do it, and you could say, what do you want from me? He did it as well. To me, that's weak.
Republicans in New Jersey are making an issue of this as it relates to Governor Murphy. But is there much more of a backlash publicly against him the same way that we're seeing in the state of New York?
Absolutely not. And I will say that the other obvious issue with Governor Cuomo has to do with these very serious accusations and allegations of these young women who worked for him. I'm not going to say that's a separate issue, but it adds to his problems. Governor Murphy has none of those problems as it relates to women on his staff directly related to him. But I'll say this. To me, right now, Governor Murphy is not that vulnerable as a candidate. Jack Ciattarelli is the likely Republican candidate. I won't get into the weeds. But I said to Jack Ciattarelli, and I will interview him and ask him again, it's not enough that you criticize Governor Murphy. You have to say what you would have done differently as it relates to schools, what you would have done differently as it relates to businesses that are suffering. 1/3 of them, Dominic, closed forever, small businesses. That's a disgrace. Those people are suffering. He can't just criticize Murphy. He's got to say what he would have done differently, including with the nursing homes. So my view, ultimately, Murphy will be judged on not just his performance with this virus and the nursing home issues and the businesses and the schools, but also on the vaccine rollout, which is going okay with lots of stops and starts. It's got to be a lot better than what it is.
We are talking to legendary television host Steve Adubato, PBS television host, knows New Jersey and New York politics like the back of his hand. We are going to continue the interview, and then I'm going to try and get in some of your telephone calls as they are coming in now. 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222.
Now, here's Dominic Carter on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Dominic Carter here with you, and we are talking with legendary TV host Steve Adubato. Steve, I want to hit two other topics before we let you go, and then we'll open up the phone lines to the public. So let's deal with the first one, the political divide in America. How are we going to fix this?
Well, let me just say this. One of the biggest concerns I have, Dominic, about this is last time I checked, when my grandparents came to this great country from Italy many, many years ago, they were so proud to be Americans. I'm so proud to be an American, flaws and all in our country. I feel as if at times we're so divided, so polarized. People want to know, who are you with, Steve? Are you for Trump or against them? Are you for Biden or against them? Are you with us? Are you for masks? Are you against masks? And I think to myself, have we gotten to the point that even those of us in the media, Dominic, have to pick sides? How about this? I like some of the things that Donald Trump did policy-wise, and I could not stand his tone and demeanor, which I thought was mean and nasty. I like some of the things that Joe Biden does, but I worry about how engaged or disengaged he is, and he doesn't seem like he's, frankly, all that sharp at times. I got to tell you something. To me, I don't understand why, even if we disagree on certain issues, we can't be respectful and courteous to each other and listen to other points of view. And if January 6th did not tell us how polarized we really are, then I don't know what will, because when we get to the point where some people feel so angry and hateful and demonize the other that they would put them at risk physically and call for their death, including Mike Pence, who had been so loyal to the president because they disagreed with him as he was handling the election process. I got to tell you, Dominic, it's my long-winded answer of saying, if we don't agree that we're all Americans and love our country, even when we disagree with each other without demonizing each other in the media and out, I'm not going to be as hopeful as I've always been about this great country.
Amen, brother Steve Adubato. You hit it dead on. I want to close with you on this topic. The Biden presidency thus far, no formal news conference with just the president in his first 60. It hasn't happened in 63 days, give or take. One is scheduled for tomorrow. How do you assess Mr. Biden thus far?
Overall, I like the stimulus package. Yeah, I've got some issues with it. There's some fat and pork in there. I'm concerned. But Congress, they weren't going to get through it unless some people are going to get their piece of the pie, which makes me sick. But that's part of it. I'll say this. Overall, he seems engaged. He seems he cares. His degree of empathy and compassion, I like. I will say this. He needs to be able to get through a serious press conference. I was just criticizing Cuomo and saying I look forward to the interview with Murphy. And by the way, de Blasio, you're right. Him running for governor will be as successful as him running for president, because I don't think he's a strong leader. But I'll say this. In the end, if President Biden can't stand before tough reporters who ask challenging questions in a respectful way and handle himself well, it wasn't enough that he got elected. He has to be that leader who stands there and answers the question, is not propped up by Jen Psaki or anyone else who says this is what he really meant. He's got to do that, because if he doesn't, Dominic, last thing I'll say is this. There are going to be more and more questions about his cognitive ability, about his ability to think and communicate clearly, and the fact that he's just not Donald Trump, who was too often nasty and angry and called names. That's not going to be enough to be a good president in my book.
Steve Adubato, I thank you very much for your time, PBS television host in New York and New Jersey. We thank you for joining us. Your opinion is always dead on, and I thank you very much, and I look forward to chatting with you in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Well, Dominic, you honor me by allowing me to be on your show, and what John and the team are doing at WABC by hearing different voices, different perspectives, but having spirited and respectful conversation is what we need more of. Thank you. Best to you and your audience, Dominic.
Thank you very much.